How was brunch?
It's good, man. Pretty good. Not too exciting, but it was quick because I had to get back. But yeah, it's nice to be able to get out. Can you get out there?
Lockdown ends Monday.
All right. So you're back right when the weather's getting nice.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you still have to wear masks everywhere, and it's going to be, 25 to 50% cap.
All right, welcome back, everybody. It is the Awesemo.com Nhl Dfs strategy show. We've got another nice slate, big prizes, and it's a Saturday. So what more can you ask for? I'm Jake Hari. I'm joined by my Saturday partner in crime, Slim Cliffy. What's up, man?
Not a whole lot. The weather's starting to get a bit nice. Sun is shining. Josh and I were talking earlier this week. The weather's starting to turn. Maybe our luck's starting to turn as well. Was a weird night last night. I know we're going to talk about it in a little bit, but for people coming over from NBA, you kind of got a taste of what it's like to not know what the lineups are going to be like till 30 minutes before they start.
Yeah, we didn't get clarity on Tampa lines. Tampa ended up being the nuts. A lot of people got there with the incorrect lines, which was a little bit frustrating to see, but that kind of thing happens. Killorn had a big night. We had a McKinnon scratch. That was miserable for me. I had a bunch of McKinnon. I was very excited to play Colorado. Boston 1 went off early and then ended up not really being the nut line, which was a little bit surprising after the first hour into the slate. It was kind of all over the place. Congrats to any of the winners. Is there anything else you wanted to mention about last night, or should we get on to today? It's a new day.
Yeah, I'll just be aware. A lot of the teams that played last night are also going to be on the slate tonight. So there's going to be a lot of information we might not know, but we'll touch on those as we get to those games.
Yeah, a lot of back-to-backs. Again, if you weren't listening yesterday, if you're new to Nhl Dfs, first of all, welcome. Thank you for joining. But we're going to have a lot of back-to-backs this week. We have them pretty much all season. A lot of these teams are playing series. So I think it's probably a good thing from like a recency bias. Like if you're plugged in recency bias standpoint, a team will get outplayed, but score a handful of goals next night, same thing. And you can kind of see, you kind of double down on some of the lines that you liked in the last game. Had they not performed well, get off some of the ones that may have outperformed actually how well they were playing. So we're going to have a few of those situations tonight. We got an early slate underway. Did you play the early?
No, I didn't play. Just crunch for time here, but hopefully people stack Pittsburgh one because it looks like they're doing pretty well. Then Barzal had that sick goal.
Yeah, Barzal, really nasty goal there between the legs. I played. I think I was a little underweight on Pitt 1, which was surprising. It was kind of scrambling at lock. But anyways, yeah, hopefully, I mean, there were pretty good contests for that. It was closer to like a main slate for any normal night. So I think there were a couple 10Ks to first. We'll be sweating that as we go along. All the games are underway. I took all those games out of the projections. So now you just got the 8-game main slate. Projections are free for today for anyone. If you want to try us out, get a peek behind the paywall. Projections for Nhl Dfs are free today. Also, MMA ownership projections are going to be free today. If you're watching the fights, there's some good ones in the title fight. Massive favorite, our producer Tyler was talking about. So feel free to check out the MMA projections. And then I believe there will be an MMA live before lock a little bit later today. We had NASCAR earlier, obviously NHL right now, and then let me check what time MMA locks at. It is okay. It's a 5:15 Eastern lock, so it'll be right after us. So we'll get out of their way once we get through these 8 games. Then the MMA guys will take you up to lock. I think that's all we got on the front end. Just want to mention, if you guys want to help support us, if you like what we do, feel free to subscribe to the channel. That's the best way you can help us for free. If you want to join, if you got any questions, feel free to hit me up on Twitter. My handle's below me. My DMs are open if you got questions about the packages, NHL, Platinum, or otherwise. I will be around unless you message me 5 minutes before lock. I might miss it. So, there's 23 hours and 5 minutes where I'll respond pretty quickly. But if you message me right around lock, probably won't get to it. And sometimes I miss them. So I apologize if I've missed anybody's DMs. Your DMs are open too, right, Cliffy? They can hit you up.
Yep. So feel free to jump in Twitter or Slack. Feel free to message me anytime. Same thing as Jake. Like if it's really close to the lock, might not get to it, but usually I'm around all day.
Yeah. Basically live in front of the computer these days, but weather's getting a little nicer, so might have to venture outside. It's been about a year and a half since I've been outside, it feels like. Let's start with the game that we saw last night, Minnesota Wild and Arizona Coyotes. 3.0 implied total for the Wild, 2.4 for the Yotes. It is going to be Cam Talbot and Darcy Kemper, I believe, is going for the Yotes. It was Ranta last night. It was Kakinen for the Wild. So you'd expect the other goalies to start on the back-to-back. Arizona swapped their lines again last night. We don't really know what's going on with them. They don't have a beat writer that travels I don't know if they don't travel or they just don't tweet out the lines. Usually we get some clarity on at least how they're going to start the game from the Arizona Coyotes official Twitter account. But after that, you kind of don't know with them. We do know what Minnesota is going to do. They're going to go with Erickson at Greenway, Foligno, Rask, Kaprizov, and Zuccarello, and then Bukestad with Parise and Fiala. Those lines pretty much stuck the whole game last night. I'm assuming you like something on the Minnesota side here. So you want to talk about the Wild?
Yeah, I mean, the thing with what's really bothering me with Minnesota is Joel Erickson kind of being pushed down into his role from last year. Last year, he was on the third line with Jordan Greenway and Marcus Foligno, or, they mixed in different people. But he was on the third line basically is in a shutdown role, and they moved him back there with Greenway and Marcus Foligno. And it kind of sucks because he's a really good setter. Like, you could say he's one of the breakout stars of the season so far. But, now that they've changed around their lines, they put Nick Bukestad with Parise and Fiala. I think Bukestad scored last night. So, I mean, he's
sick pass from Kaprizov.
Yeah, he's a decent player, but he's not nearly as good as Joel Erickson Ek. So that's just kind of what's tamping down my excitement for Minnesota a little bit here tonight. Is like, I think it's probably optimal for them from a winning games perspective, but it's not optimal for us from a DFS perspective. I do like the Bukestad, Parise, Fiala line. Like, I think you mentioned it yesterday.
Yeah.
Fiala is one of those guys. He's good enough to generate offense either on his own or drag a line along with him. So I don't mind using those guys at all. I'm more focused on like Erickson Ek and Foligno, or Erickson Ek and Greenway, because I think it's a nice two-man. Like, they have a long history of playing really well together. Like, there's a reason why they're a shutdown line, is because they were excellent shutting down the opposition, but could also score on the other end. So I'm mixing like some two-mans of like Erickson Ek Greenway, Erickson Ek Foligno, that type of thing. Maybe throwing on Ryan Suter, because Ryan Suter's playing heavy power play 1 minutes now. He was up to 24 minutes last game. He's still at 3,700, I think, on DraftKings. So I'm throwing Suter in with those guys. But that's about it that I have from the Minnesota side. Like, Kaprizov and Zuccarello, I agree. Like, I won't say that people are dumb for playing them. They look really good together. Their on-ice shooting percentage is over 21%. To put into perspective how high that is, if they were to shoot half that, they would be among the elite in the league. Like, they're just on a crazy percentage bender right now. And you kind of want to catch those guys when they're on them. So, like, I wouldn't say don't play them, because maybe it lasts for another game. But I don't like playing guys that are on benders. I like playing guys that are actually just performing well. So that's why I'm going more to Erickson Ek, Foligno. They're a little bit more reliable. On the Arizona side, like you said, they changed their lines. Schmaltz and Garland started the game with Kessel, finished the game with Kajula, mixed around a bunch of other guys. I would say if you're going to stack Arizona, I would just focus on the power play guys, because Minnesota does take a fair amount of penalties. They're top 10 by time shorthanded this year. So, Schmaltz, Keller, Garland, Dvorak, Chikrin, like some three-man mix of those five guys is probably what I would go to if I want to stack Arizona, because We just don't know what the lines are going to be, and the safest course of action would just be stacking the power play.
Yeah, I think that's probably the way to go with Arizona. You're going to know lines maybe like 5 or at most 10 minutes before for Arizona, at least how they're going to start. But again, we just don't know what's going to happen afterwards. The wild side, I think I'm going back to the Parisi Fiala, at least duo. If you want to add in Bukestad for 2,700, no problem with stacking the full line. So there's definitely 3 playable lines for Minnesota. It's not like my favorite spot, but I'd prefer to get to the Minnesota side for cheap rather than the Arizona side for cheap if I could only have one side here. So I'll say that. I mean, Minnesota's got playmakers. Well, they've got 2 really good playmakers, Kaprizov and Fiala. More of a scorer, Fiala is, but Kaprizov making a ton of plays, putting guys in really good positions to score. And so maybe that's why their shooting percentage is so high right now. Obviously not sustainable. But he's still underpriced, I think, for 4,400 playing power play 1 with Zuccarello. So no issue going to any of the top 3 lines for Minnesota. I think I'm focused a little bit more on the Rask line and the Bukestad line as filler full stacks. You mentioned Suter, 3,700 for him. He's just playing a lot of minutes. I mean, his shot rates aren't fantastic. He doesn't block a ton of shots, but enough to get by for that price. So he's just going to play a lot of minutes for a guy that's under 4K. Spurgeon and Dumba are probably the better one-offs, still cheap enough for both of those guys. More of your one-off options there. Chikrin, pretty quiet last night. 6,300 for him, a little bit expensive, but if you're stacking Yotes, he would probably be the number 1 defenseman to get to. I think that's all I've got on this game. You got anything more?
Yeah, just the last thing I want to add, like I was telling you before the show, Arizona has an expected goal share of 41.7% over the last month. Like bad teams are at like 45, 46%. 41% is like you should be getting rolled over pretty much every single night, and they have been. Their goal share is 40%. So Arizona is just not a good team. That's why we're pretty high on Minnesota, even though it's back-to-back and on the road.
Yep. People mentioning the ownership for Marc-Andre Fleury, who did not start last night, and he was 14%. Someone says in chat, and then I think people are talking about McKinnon as well. He was like over 10%. You had 30 minutes to react. Like people just do not pay attention to NHL that much, and you got a lot of NBA people. Maybe they're not paying attention, so it's as important as ever. Just don't take zeros, and I think you're going to be in a good spot at least for the next week. If you can just stay on top of that, set an alarm. If you're unsure about lines or unsure about game time decisions, probably going to have a handful of those tonight. So be aware, be in Slack. That's the best place to go. Turn on Slack alerts, and you'll have a much better chance of not taking zeros with your guys. Let's go to the Jets and the Canadiens. 2.6 implied total for the Jets, 3 for Montreal. Hellebuck and Price are your goalies. We saw this one a couple nights ago. I'll do my Montreal spiel here. They're amazing at 5-on-5. They cannot stay out of the penalty box. So I get it if you want to stack Winnipeg. I think Winnipeg is probably going to get run over at 5-on-5 as they have a bunch of times this season. The third line in this game 2 nights ago was especially bad for the Jets. On the Montreal side, just general notes. Toffoli was skating with Kotkaniemi and Josh Anderson, who looks like he's going to be back tonight. So, I see you nodding your head. You're going to like that line, I think, getting some of this Winnipeg depth. And then got Danault, Tatar, Gallagher, one of the better possession lines in the NHL over the last handful of years. Suzuki with Armia and Drouin, that's fully correlated on the second line. So a lot to parse through on the Montreal side. Only a 3 total. That's probably more to do with just Hellebuck being very good. What are you liking on this Montreal side? It seems like there's a bunch of different directions to go.
Yeah, there is a lot to like here. That top line, Danault, Tatar, Gallagher, I like that line because they're going to go probably into the second line from Winnipeg. If you look at the line matching from the last game, this is where it's going to kind of mess me up because the line matching from the last game had Suzuki, Drouin, and Toffoli out against the top line for Winnipeg. But obviously that line's different now. Joel Armia is there. Josh Anderson's down on the third line with Toffoli and Kotkaniemi. I'm assuming Montreal's top 6 just takes the top 6 from Winnipeg, and then the third line takes the third line. Like I really like this third line for Montreal here tonight. Kotkaniemi Anderson, Toffoli. Like Toffoli, he's just flat out one of the best goal scorers in the league. Like he's not Pasternak, Ovechkin, Matthews, but he's probably in that next tier below them. It's just that he was stuck. He was like we've talked about on the show this year. He was stuck in Los Angeles without a playmaking center for so long. He goes to Montreal. He gets Kotkaniemi and Anderson tonight. Kotkaniemi, like he might be a better center for these guys than Suzuki is. Like we talk about shot assists, and for NBA people or people new to the NHL show, shot assists is a metric that some people track, and it's how often a player finds a teammate in the offensive zone with a pass that leads to a shot. So just passes that leads to shots. It's a pretty good indicator of future goals. So it's something that we like to use in projections. Jesperi Kotkaniemi was in his brief, and I want to say his brief NHL tenure, but it's not like he has no games played, right? Like Kotkaniemi's up to 137 career games. His shot assist rate is in the 97th percentile of the league. Like he is excellent at finding teammates. The problem is that he just doesn't get a lot of ice time, right? He's averaging under 14 minutes a night. With Anderson and Toffoli there, I think that's a fantastic line combination for them. And like I said, they're going to get probably the third and fourth lines from the Jets. The Jets' third line has a 42 expected goal share so far this year. They've just been getting buried. Like that's nothing to worry about. Like if you look at the defense pairs, Neil Pionk, Derek Forbort, Nathan Beaulieu, like there is just absolutely nothing to be concerned about defensively for the Jets. So I love Kotkaniemi, Anderson, Toffoli here. Yeah, they don't have power play correlation, but the Jets don't take a ton of penalties anyways. They're like 30th in the league for time shorthanded. So if you're stacking Montreal, it's not necessarily for the power play correlation anyway. So if you want to leave Toffoli off and just two-man Kotkaniemi, Anderson, they're cheap enough, like 7,600 on DraftKings. It's a really cheap two-man. I don't mind doing that as well. So I'm probably going to leave Suzuki, Armia, Drouin alone for tonight. I don't mind using them because they're correlated. They're going to skate together 5-on-5. They're cheap. I wouldn't begrudge for using them. I think they might struggle to score goals. So for me, it would be the top line, Danault, Tatar, Gallagher for Montreal, or the third line, Kotkaniemi, Anderson, Toffoli. On the Winnipeg side, same thing as the last game, power play stack. Scheifele, Wheeler, Stasny, Connor, Morrissey, some combination of those guys. Montreal still one of the most penalized teams in the league, and they give up amongst the most goals. Their expected goals against on the penalty kill is also bad. It's just a bad penalty kill with too many penalties. So Winnipeg power play, I like them a lot here again tonight. Montreal 1-3 for me.
I don't have anything to add on the Winnipeg side. This game's pretty much all about Montreal for me. And it's the even strength lines. Montreal's not a team I look to really stack on the power play too often, especially on a bigger slate like this. I think the majority of their scoring is going to come from from even strength, just dominating at 5-on-5 if you do see an outlier performance. So line 1, line 3, I'm right there with you. Line 2, the Suzuki line, they've got the flashy power play 1 tags, but again, it's not that important for a team like Montreal. It definitely helps. You'd like them to be more correlated, but I think that's like people are going to end up leaving off Anderson or Danault or Tatar, someone like that on a lot of these full line stacks. So I like the full line stacks for 1 and 3. These defensemen for Montreal are just really expensive. Weber and Petrie. I probably prefer Weber for a little bit cheaper, but right now I'm not getting to much of either of those guys. Morrissey, a guy I usually just play with Winnipeg power plays or Winnipeg 1 stacks. And I don't think I'm going to get to too many of those tonight. I don't know. Winnipeg has just been tilting me off a cliff so far this season. So we'll see if that continues, but I'm going to continue to attack them here.
Yeah, I will too. And I'm glad you mentioned going to Weber, because remember earlier in the season, we talked about how Shea Weber wasn't shooting much. He had 26 shots in his first 15 games. He has 26 shots in his last 7 games now, averaging nearly 4 shots a game over his last 7. He has 3 shot bonuses in his last 10 as well. So remember, Montreal had 6 days off. So maybe he just had some sort of nagging injury that just needed a little bit of time. And he looks like the Shea Weber, at least shot-wise, of a few years ago. So I don't mind him. Josh Morrissey, do you know he doesn't have a shot bonus or a 3-point game yet this year, and he's played almost every single minute on the top power play for Winnipeg?
I believe it. I mean, he's just not very involved in their
Right.
scoring.
So like,
all.
you know, if you want to put in Morrissey, I guess it's fine because it's only 4,300. But I want people to know, like, it's not like he's not a must to include on your power play stacks like you would elsewhere. Like with Toronto, like with Quinn Hughes, you definitely include him in Vancouver in those types of scenarios. But Josh Morrissey doesn't fit that bill.
Yep. We got a super chat from our boy Matt Nihas. He says the detail and commitment is stellar. Thanks for what you guys do. Appreciate it, man. $5. Oh, $4.99 super chat there, not $5. Thank you. Very generous of you, Matt. Didn't have a question, but I'm sure, you know, Ricard Raquel night, he's been touting Raquel to me. And so we'll talk about Raquel for Nihas a little bit later. Let's go to, what are we at? Toronto, Vancouver, 3.7 implied total for the Leafs, 2.7 for the Canucks. Anderson and Demko, neither of those guys are confirmed right now, but those are who we're expecting. Okay, this is another weird one where it's tripping me up because Vancouver is usually a West Coast start. This is like a late afternoon game there. It's a 7 Eastern start, so it doesn't really matter. Pedersen not expected to play. Is that right?
Yeah.
No.
Well, I haven't seen anything for sure. I'm expecting he's out again.
Okay. Yeah, he was kind of a late scratch 2 or 3 nights ago, which I've been burned by the late scratches a couple times. I think I was very heavy on Vancouver, the Pedersen line. He got scratched last night. It was McKinnon. He got scratched. So I'm going to try to avoid having my highest exposed lines.
Okay, confirmed out.
Missing guys. He's confirmed out? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's good to know. So then we think they're going to go Horvat, Pearson, Virtanen, Miller with centering Brock Besser and Nils Hoglander. Third lines, you know, you got Sutter and your boy Gaudette. So if you wanted to dip down there, but third line for Toronto's been pretty good. So I don't know. I mean, big total for the Leafs. We weren't really on Toronto when these two teams played last. Have you kind of changed your tune on them, or are you going to a more with no Pedersen?
Oh no, I'm going to Toronto. Okay. Like we weren't on them the last game because we were time zone touting, remember? So it doesn't really apply in this game. And even if you look at that game, like Toronto pretty much ran them over. Like sometimes you run into a good goaltender, those things happen. I mean, they matched the Horvat. If I'm not mistaken, it was the Horvat. Yeah, Horvat, Virtanen, and Pearson matched them pretty much all. Matched the Marner, Thornton, Matthews line pretty much all game, and that line had over 70% expected goal share. The thing with Thornton, I want to mention Thornton. He only played one shift in the third period on Thursday. Only played 11 and a half minutes total. Now that was a back-to-back, and he's like 44 years old. So maybe they were just giving him a little bit of a rest. But Zach Hyman jumped up and played a fair amount of minutes on that top line. So just be aware of that in warm-up in case they change something. Maybe Thornton's out. If Zach Hyman's on the top line, Toronto 1's probably my favorite line of the whole night. So that's just one thing to watch for. But I'm just going right back to Toronto here, especially with Pedersen out. There's no line that can defend Toronto. Like there's just not. I'm sorry. Vancouver's just one of the worst defensive teams in the league, and they're missing probably their best two-way center. Like I like Horvat, but I think Pedersen's got a little bit of an edge on him. And either way, you're moving JT Miller to center, and that's just, with Besser and Hoglander, who are probably both below average defensively, there's just nothing to worry about matchup wise. So I'm going right back to Toronto 1. The thing I want to mention is in that game was that John Tavares jumped up on the top power play unit the entire game. So I think Toronto 1 probably could be popular. We have Austin Matthews at 24% right now in our latest ownership run. But, a Matthews, Tavares, Thornton, Riley stack would be super uncommon. Like there won't be a lot of people double centering Matthews and Thornton, I don't think. So if you're worried about Toronto 1 ownership, I think double center with Thornton and Tavares is one way to get different, or sneaking in Hyman if he's there at warmups. On the Vancouver side, I don't have anything. I think I have some one-off like Hoglander or some one-off Nate Schmidt, but that's pretty much it. With Elias Pettersson out and with Toronto playing the way they've had pretty much all year, they've had an extra day's rest. This seems like it's going to be a Toronto game. And they don't take a lot of penalties anyway. And we usually stack Vancouver for their power play plus no Pettersson. Like there's just too many red flags for me.
Yeah, this kind of stinks because I really wanted this. Like I wanted Pettersson to play and go back to the spot, but with him out, like it's just not as appealing for the Vancouver side. Low total for them. I think if I'm going to play Vancouver, it would be some sort of power play stack. I just don't have much confidence in their in their even strength line. So you get Pearson on the top power play, I guess. You could go to either of these, top two. They're relatively cheap. But yeah, this is going to be more about Toronto, Matthews Marner. And it's amazing how we're talking about Zach Hyman being such an upgrade over, the next guy that we're expecting to be on line one with Matthews and Marner. But that's really the case. I mean, that line's been awesome at 5-on-5. Not that the Thornton, like with Thornton there, they haven't been, but I just feel better. Like I feel better about playing a 5K Zach Hyman at low ownership as a low owned trio than chalk Thornton at 4K. That makes sense.
Can I just say one thing about that? Like, yeah. I think that winger kind of changes the way they play, right? Because Zach Hyman and Joe Thornton are diametrically opposed as hockey players, right? Like, Thornton is very slow, very methodical, use your body, take space, make 5, 6, 7 passes to make the play. Hyman's not that guy, right? Like, Hyman's more of a grinder, chip the puck, pass somebody, go get it, that type of thing. So I think playing with Thornton, I think that might slow down Marner and Matthews. Like it might, they're still a great line, but they just play to a slower pace. And I think Hyman being there might make them play at a higher pace. Like that's just kind of a bit of conjecture, but I think it would make sense when you just look at the types of players that Hyman and Thornton are.
Yeah. We got another super chat from our boy Clayton, $5. As always, thanks again, Clayton. He said, when stacking an expensive line, what is the best way to avoid getting funneled into an easily duplicated lineup? That is a really awesome question. What would you say there, Cliffy?
If you're not using our leverage tool on the top stacks tool on the site, because I think that's really helpful. Because Vegas 2 last night, one of our chalky stacks, and that ended up being true. So if you can't do that. The one thing I would do, like if you're just someone watching the show and you're just trying to get your feet wet with NHL, go to Awesemo.com, go to our lineup builder, check the implied goal totals, and look for cheap lines from teams with high implied goal totals. So tonight, Vegas 3.5, one of the bigger totals on the slate. Vegas 2, if you look at their salary, hasn't come up, still at 12,900. It's a pretty good bet they're going to be a chalky line, right? Yep. So I think like if you don't have access to our top stacks tool, the quick shortcut to avoid a chalky filler stack is to look for the cheap lines on high implied goal total teams and then avoid those.
Yeah. And I think just as a general lineup construction, not rule, but like a guideline, when you're playing a team like Boston 1, you kind of know who the 4 or 5 top lines are that people are going to pair with them. And so if you want, like, it's fine if you want to play them or you want to play like a 2-man of them. That was something I experimented with. I like the full stack, but I also like not being duped. And so you can play, 5 forwards that are going to be together, take one guy off and maybe go with like a punt forward and similar defenseman. And that would be a decent way to avoid getting completely duped. Now you might be a 1v1 or 2v2 away, but that's a lot better than splitting a top heavy prize where like you want to win the 50K. You don't want to split it with 4 or 5 other people. It would be a nice cash, but again, long-term, if you're playing DFS day in and day out, you don't want to be duping in a sport like NHL very often. So, for example, like if you're going to a really expensive line, I should do like Toronto 3 a little bit. Whether like some sort of 2-man Mikheyev, if it is Hyman, Engvall, Hyman, Engvall, Mikheyev, whatever. There's a lot of cheap 2-mans that I think are viable if you're willing to dip down to those third lines when you're playing a really expensive, main stack. Anything else in the Toronto-Vancouver game?
Yeah, I just want to mention Demko. Don't mind using him in net because I think most of the time when Vancouver wins this game without Pettersson, it's probably because of Demko, not because they outscored, because they blew the doors off the Leafs.
Josh says, can always just stack Nichushkin against your goalie like Jake. Yeah. I do that last night? I probably did. I think I global swapped I global swapped someone and he was the only $2,500 winger. He was the first one I saw that was playing. So I don't know. I must have been playing him against Gibson or yeah, they played Anaheim again last night. So yeah, I'm sure I did that. That'll happen. Sometimes you get lazy. But anyways, let's go to Columbus, Dallas. 2.4 implied total for the Jackets. 2.8 for the Stars. Korpisalo and Oettinger going for the Stars. Is it Dennis Gurianov night? They're looking pretty popular. It's only a 2.8 implied total. I haven't looked at them in the top stacks specifically, but I'm pulling them up right now. I'm assuming they're going to be one of the lower leverage lines or negative leverage lines. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, actually, right now the highest or the second worst leverage on the slate right now when you compare their top 2 stack percentage to their ownership share. They are chalky. They are valuable. Is the value overrated here, or are you liking the matchup for Dallas 1?
I don't really think it's a great matchup for Dallas 1. Like I'm not going to say don't play Gurianov. I actually do have a fair amount of Gurianov myself, but I mean it's more or less because he's on the top line for 4,100. The thing is, like, Dallas is heavily reliant on power plays for scoring. Their 5-on-5 scoring has not been very good this year. They've done most of their damage with the man advantage. And Columbus is one of the least penalized teams in the NHL, if not the least, the least penalized team in the NHL. I think in the game they played a couple nights ago, I think there's only 2 or 3 power plays between both teams the entire game. So that's the problem, is that it's actually the problem for both top lines here, right? Because with Dallas, you want them to get those power plays because they are correlated for the most part. I think Gurianov got moved off last game for Robertson on 1 power play, but I'm not sure if that's going to last. They are correlated and they are relatively cheap. Like, it's a decent spot, but they just won't. I don't think they get that many power plays. And then on the Columbus side, they don't draw that many penalties. They're one of the least. They're one of the teams with the least amount of power play opportunities on the season. So, like, I was on Columbus 1 last game, and I'm probably going to have a share or 2 of them again this game because they're going to come in so low owned. But that's only, on the off chance that they do get 4 or 5 power plays here, because I think that's their only real chance of having a GPP winning score. You need to get Line A on those power plays. Like, he's not a massive 5-on-5 goal scorer, especially in this lineup. So I'm just going to go in with Dallas, and like one of the ways that I'm going to try to get different is probably, like, I see even Heiskanen and Klingberg have similar ownerships. I think Heiskanen probably comes in a little bit lower because he hasn't done anything this year, but I really like both top lines. Like, kind of, it's hard to explain why I just don't like both top lines because I think it's a bad matchup on both sides. But I will have some of both, if you get what I'm saying. It's because, like, if Dallas can get those 4 or 5 power plays, I think it could be a huge night for them. If Columbus can get those 4 or 5 power plays, it could be a huge night for them. But it's just not likely that those power plays are going to happen. So it's why I'm really tamping down my expectations. So I do have a little bit of both top lines, but I'm not super excited about it. It's more one of those long shot plays in case they get the power plays.
Yeah, Josh really put me on blast in the chat. He said he forgives me, but I did play some Val Nichushkin against Gibson. So apologies. That's in bad taste. Don't do that on big slates. But sometimes I break my own rules. So yeah, Josh calling me out as he should. In this game, look, I think Dallas, like, it's one of those things in this game where if you're a believer in Columbus 1, like it sounds like you are long term, you kind of just got to be in on them if you're going to make a handful of lineups, even in these bad spots. Like I do this with lines all the time where I'll just have 5% or 8% of a line when they're going to be 1-2% in a tough spot. And if it's going to even out long term if you're going to be right on the line, like they're going to have a GPP winning performance. So they're pretty cheap, or cheap enough. Like, you can't pair them with the other top line. So that's why they're getting completely squeezed out in the ownership. Talking about Columbus 1, Dallas 1, I think I'm going to be below the field on Dallas one. It's hard for me to stomach this ownership. I think it could be a good line, but a little bit too much value, pushing their ownership up a little bit to a spot where I'm not that comfortable playing 15% owned or 13% owned Dallas one with a 2.8 implied total. Looks like Dallas switched up their lines. I mean, is Faxa not going to be with Como and Cogliano? Because that's been a pretty good shutdown line. And I'm seeing them not together right now on my screen. Are you seeing something else?
I mean, they moved Gurianov off the top line in the last game, if I'm not mistaken. He got pushed down to the second line. But I was looking at Stars lines this morning where Ben Pavelski, Gurianov. Faxa was actually on the fourth line. Cogliano, Dickinson, and Como was the third line. So you're right.
Yeah,
that might make Columbus a little bit of a better target.
Yeah, I would definitely like Columbus one a little bit better. I mean, it's Radek Faxa, but like, can't argue with the numbers. That line's had really good expected goals against numbers going back to the start of last season, and they've kept it up this year. And they like to match them against opposing top competition when they're on home ice. So I think I'm a little bit more interested in Columbus than I was about, a minute ago, but that's not to say that I'm going to be, loading up my crunches with 20, 30% Columbus one. Anyone on the blue line here? Heiskanen, 4,200. You believe her there?
Yeah, Heiskanen's the guy I'm looking at. Ice time is coming up. 22:45 in his first 10, 24:30 in his last 10, or around that. So Heiskanen's my guy. I think Heiskanen is the one-off guy. I think if I'm stacking Dallas, like three-man stacking the top line, I'm putting in Klingberg because he's more of a playmaker. If I just want a one-off one of the defensemen, it's Heiskanen.
All right. I agree with that. I was getting to a bunch of him my first few crunches. Really quick, we are running behind somehow. We're only through half the slate, and we got about 22, 23 minutes left. But in YouTube chat, Jenna says she played the first hockey lineup yesterday, won the $10 in single entry, played 6 players from one team. That is called the Josh stack. So congrats there. Hopefully, sounds like it was a good experience with your first run with the Josh stack. Use it sparingly, but good stuff there. Always like to see that. Let's go to the Ducks and the Avs. 2.1 implied total for Anaheim, 3.4 for the Avs. Ryan Miller and Hunter Miska are your expected goalies. We don't think McKinnon is going to play tonight. Sounds like he's out through the weekend, which would include today. Late scratch last night. I really like Colorado one, though. They were good last night at 5-on-5. Maybe it was because they were chasing, Ducks got up pretty early. What say you on Colorado one? I really, really like them.
I don't like them as much.
Oh, no.
Yeah. I'm not going to say don't play them. What concerns me is, like, Kadri is a good player. The reason the top line for Colorado works so well is McKinnon is a top 3 offensive player in hockey. Like, it's just a simple fact. Kadri is a good player, but he's not anywhere close to their level. Add to the fact that they changed up, like, I'm assuming that Burakovsky's going to stay on the top power play because he was there all last game, but they changed up the top line too, right? Like, Burakovsky was moved to the top line with Landeskog moved down to the second line. So we already have some uncertainty with the Colorado top 6. Like, they're all probably going to play on the power play together anyway. So, you can just power play stack and probably get away with it. But, like, I think Anaheim's, I don't want to say they're turning the corner, but their younger players are starting to play better. Like, Lundestrom has looked decent. I dare I say good. Do I say that an Anaheim Ducks player has actually looked good? Rickard Rakell has looked better than he did. Like, Anaheim just, like, they seem like a pushover, but I'm not really sure that they are. So I'm actually more leaning towards the Anaheim side. Like, going back to some 2-man duos, like Henrik and Silfverberg is one of those duos that I really like playing. Silfverberg played 21 minutes last night. Like, they're really starting to lean on him a little bit. And they both play together on the same power play. So I'm going back to Henrik and Silfverberg. Rakell and Zegras. Like, Rakell has been pretty consistently playing 18 to 20 minutes a night. Don't mind playing them. But for me, I think this game for me is about getting in the cheap guys to fit in my more expensive stacks elsewhere, because I'm way in more on Toronto and Edmonton than I am on Colorado. Like, that's just the way it is for me tonight. I don't see the value there without Nathan MacKinnon, even though you're saving $3,500 going down to Nazem Kadri. I just think it's too steep a drop in talent. I wouldn't get mad at anybody. Like, people are going to play them, and people should play them because Kadri's still a good player. They're all still correlated together. Anaheim, like, they're better, but that doesn't mean they're necessarily good. So I'm not going to say you're an idiot for playing Colorado 1. It's just they're not in my mix personally here tonight.
Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, I think the reasoning is sound. It's definitely a downgrade offensively. Whether or not the price makes sense for each individual person is going to be the question. But them potentially going with Kadri instead of Landeskog could also present an issue. Pre-game skate, they're probably all going to be together on the power play, so you're a little bit saved whichever way they end up going. I like the third line also for Colorado. I'm not really on the Ducks here. Max Jones, line 2 with Henrique and Silfverberg last night. They've been taking guys in and out of the lineup like the whole season. So there's probably going to be some random scratch that we don't even know about, someone being put into the Ducks lineup. This game does not lock right at lock time, so just be aware of what's going on there. McDonald played 20 minutes last night for the Avs. If you're looking for a $2,800 defenseman, Gerard and Devin Tays, 4,900 and 5,300, both played 28 minutes. Gerard almost 29 last night. So and want some minutes eaters. Those are your guys.
Yeah, and Ryan Graves was down to 17, so I think he's pretty much off the board for us now.
Yeah, that's frustrating because I really would want to play him for 4,400 here with no Makar still. What about Manson on the other side, $2,500?
Oh, absolutely. Shot block machine.
Yep. I like the call. We'll get him in the projections after I get off the show and update everything. All right, let's go to the Blues and the Kings. 3 implied total for the Blues, 2.5 for the Kings. Binnington and likely Jonathan Quick. It was Cal Peterson last night. I'm seeing Tarasenko. This is how excited people are right now. The line where we get our site. The site where we get our lines from. They've got Tarasenko listed on both the first and the second line. So he's not going to be playing on 2 lines, but he is going to be making his season debut. He is $2,500. He's expected, I think, to be on the Shen Perron line and also likely top power play duties. How do you treat a situation like this? We've had a few, but usually it's with a cheap defenseman that's, just mispriced. We've got a mispriced, very good scoring winger making his debut on a team in a pretty good spot here.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure our cash game players would say otherwise, but I don't know how you build a cash game lineup without him in the lineup tonight. Seems pretty safe. Like, even if they want to ease him in, he's playing on the second line, top power play. He's still easing him in would still be 16, 17 minutes. You know what I mean? So you're right about playing with Shen and Perron. He had been practicing with them in practice, and I think that's why they brought Nathan Walker up, is they didn't want to disturb the chemistry of the rest of the line, so they just threw in Nathan Walker until Tarasenko was ready. So it seems a good bet that he's going to play with Shen and Perron. What I wonder is if it's going to draw the Kopitar matchup from the Kings, right? Because he did match up, if I'm not mistaken, they matched up last night, Ryan O'Reilly up against the Kopitar line. And that pushed the Shen Perron line against Carter, which is a much better matchup. But with Tarasenko back, I'm wondering how that might change things. So I think at this point, with Tarasenko's price, you just can't be worried about the matchup. Like, if you can stack his line at $15K on his first night back with a 3 implied goal total, like, regardless of matchup, you just do it. So I'm putting in quite a bit of St. Louis here just because you can fit him in with, the more reasonably priced lines, like Winnipeg power play or San Jose or something like that. So I do like that St. Louis second line. I am expecting Tarasenko top power play because Oscar Sundqvist had been on the top PP unit, but it looks like he might be out tonight. So I can't imagine they're going to take Sundqvist off the power play and put somebody like Sammy Blais there or something like that. Maybe they put Hoffman, but I doubt it. So
You said
Yeah,
Sundqvist is out?
yeah, they're saying he's a game time decision.
Oh, okay. I didn't catch that one. All right,
Yeah.
sweet.
So, if he's out and off the power play, it seems pretty easy to just put Tarasenko in, not necessarily in his role, but definitely in his spot. So, yeah, this is about St. Louis too for me. I'm not really high on the Kings because I wouldn't want to take the top line going into that matchup for St. Louis. The second line has been good, but they're not really high event. And Tarasenko coming back actually gives them two pretty solid top defensive lines now. So I'm more or less out on the Kings altogether here tonight. I think the one thing I would do is power play stack them because the Blues do take a lot of penalties. The Kings do generate a lot of power plays. They actually have the fourth most power plays in the league this year per game. So if you want to stack Kings power play, I'm fine with that. But I'm mostly off them, and I'm mostly on the Blues, specifically Shen, Perron, Tarasenko. You can throw in like Krug if you want or whatever, but I think it's fine leaving a defenseman off your stack.
Yeah, I think it's fine. Throwing on Krug or not, just up to you. Done at 3,100. It's also a guy I'm gonna be targeting again. I'm sure you'll have a couple in your 20. But yeah, with this situation with Tarasenko, like it's not that big of a deal. Like if I was playing a bunch of 3-2-1s and I was getting Tarasenko as like my one every single time, then yeah, I would probably limit him because I just don't think you should ever be that overexposed to someone. If you wanted to go all in on a player, like I get why someone would want to do that. He's never going to be this cheap, probably for the rest of his career. It is a pretty good spot. He's like a $6,500 player in this spot, I would say, just throwing a number out there, but like you get the point. He's a guy who attempts a ton of shots, playing top power play and playing on a pretty good line. So fully correlated as well. Like there's just almost nothing bad to say about Tarasenko besides his ownership, which is going to be pretty high, but that going into it, you can still play the stack. Perron and Chen are not going to be, 50% owned. They might be 10 to 12%, but I'm okay with that. Sundqvist being out potentially being out probably takes me off St. Louis 3. I don't have much on the Kings side. If you wanted to take a stab at, one of their top 6, then that's fine, but certainly not a priority for me. Anything else here?
No, that's it for me.
All right, let's go to, oh boy, Calgary and Edmonton. Oh, we've only got 2 more games. All right, cool. Calgary, Edmonton, 3 implied total for the Flames, 3.3 for the Oilers. Markstrom and Mike Smith. Markstrom returning after being out for a while. I believe this is his first game back. I'm not sure. It doesn't matter. Vegas totals are what matter. Is it his first game back?
Yeah.
All right, cool. Tough first game back, especially with the lines that Calgary has working for them right now. Talk about McDavid here. I mean, going to be one of the more popular plays of the slate. His line's back together. What are you doing here?
I mean, he's easily my favorite player of the whole slate. Like, I mean, it's obvious. Like, well, I like Connor McDavid. It's like, okay, but the specific reason here tonight is Calgary more or less had these lines in a road game in Edmonton back on February 20th. And the way that the matchup worked in that game was Nugent Hopkins, McDavid, and Puljujarvi went out against the Gaudreau-Lindholm line. And if McDavid and Puljujarvi go out against the Gaudreau line again here tonight, they are just absolutely going to throttle them. Like Gaudreau, Monahan, whomever, have not been good defensively at all this year. And that top line for Edmonton has just been an absolute buzzsaw. Obviously, one of the best offensive lines in the league. So absolutely love the Edmonton top line here tonight. Love the pricing. Even Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, reasonable at $7K. Puljujarvi, down at 4,200. So like they're expensive, but it's not like Boston won 24K plus expensive. Like you can actually still fit in a decent secondary stack with them. If you want to throw in like Draisaitl or whatever for some additional power play exposure, I don't hate that. Just watch the power play because they didn't have one last game and they changed up at that fourth forward all the time. So we don't necessarily know who it's going to be. I'm just all in on, I'm pretty heavy on Edmonton tonight. They're going to be my heaviest exposure, and it probably won't even be close. I don't really have much for Calgary. If anything, it would be that Calgary second line because they're going to get a lot of that Draisaitl, Yamamoto line, and they've been pretty bad defensively. So Lindholm, Kachuk, and Dubé. I am not going to mouth Dylan Dubé again. I've learned my lesson. So if you want to use a Calgary line, I would probably use them because they're going to get a better matchup. But for me, this game's all about Edmonton 1.
Yeah, Dubé, great player, as we were saying a couple nights ago before the 2-goal outing there. I mean, maybe that line turns it around. So I'm willing to take some stabs on Kachuk, Lindholm, and Dubé. I don't feel great about it because it looks like they're getting 7-8% aggregate ownership. But they're going to get the better matchup against the Draisaitl, Kahun, Yamamoto line, which has been really poor defensively. Not really in on Edmonton 2 as like a priority line. I think I'd much rather just try to get Draisaitl in a power play 1 stack for Edmonton. So it is an 8-game slate, but I'm going to have some Edmonton onslaughts with their top guys. I'm looking for some cheap 2-mans elsewhere because I think I'm going to have some 5-man Edmonton power play stacks. Real tough spot for Markstrom to come back. He's probably going to see a lot of volume. He's 7,300. So if you wanted to one-off a goalie, maybe get some leverage on the Edmonton chalk, that's fine. But I would feel very comfortable if Edmonton 1 was my highest exposed. Don't just leave off Puljujarvi just to leave him off either. Like 4,200, this guy can score, especially playing on this line. This line has elite 5-on-5 numbers. So if you wanted to leave him off and you could get up to Draisaitl, then that's perfectly fine. But I wouldn't just be like, yeah, you got to leave off Puljujarvi at 4,200. He's priced way down from where he was even like a week ago. And he'll be the lowest owned guy on Edmonton 1. So yeah, if they go up against the Gaudreau line, they're going to just smash them. So just whether or not they score the goals. And this McDavid guy, he's pretty good at scoring them, I hear.
Yeah, so, I would bet on him scoring.
Yeah. James Neal, is he going to play power play 1 or is it Chase on? Do you know? 3,300.
We don't know. They didn't have a power play last game. So what their power play looks like, we don't know.
Okay. Yikes.
Yeah.
Usually you can go to those guys for salary relief, but if you wanted to do a fun little trick on FC, you could just put Puljujarvi as your power play 1 guy and just 5-man it with McDavid, Nugent Hopkins, Puljujarvi, Draisaitl, and Tyson Barrie. If you could fit that, I think you could probably do it. You just got to get real punty elsewhere. So that's something I might consider doing in some of my lineups as well. But yeah, Edmonton 1. This looks to me like the spot. I can't really argue against anything on the Connor McDavid front. I like them better than Colorado. I like them better than Toronto. They're the best play, I think. I'm not even sure it's really that close. You can make a case for Toronto, I think. But yeah, this looks like the spot. Maybe you can make a case for Vegas. We'll get to it. You got anything else in the Edmonton game?
No, that's it for me.
All right, last game of the night. Just want to remind everyone, we do have free NHL projections. If you want to check those out, get a peek behind the paywall. With the premium subscription, you would get those projections, ownership projections, top stack tool that we've been referring to. The lineup builder that I use to go through the slate every day, hand build some lineups there. You can export directly from there, DraftKings or FanDuel. And then premium Slack. Premium Slack, 99% of the time, you're going to get some really good hockey talk. You'll get some other conversations in there. But that's just the law of large numbers is what I'm going to say. So Slack is really good. The NHL community that we've built up in our Slack is awesome. A lot of people helping each other out. Sharp content providers, sharp subscribers. It's a really good mix of people and people that will help you out. Like no one's going to get mad at you for asking a noob question like that. You know, we want to see more people playing NHL DFS. We want to grow it. So people will be nice to you in there. Good reason to join, get some late breaking news and avoid you taking some zeros, which there were a handful of them last night given out. Vegas, San Jose, 3.5 implied total for the Golden Knights, 2.4 for the Sharks. It is going to be Fleury tonight. We thought he was going last night. It was Oscar Dansk, who was doing his best to blow a big lead late. Dubnyk for the Sharks. He came in relief of Party Marty last night. I mean, how do you think this one's going to go? More of the same, Vegas, as much Vegas as you can get?
Yeah, I'm in on Vegas too again. And again, I'm going to do try to mix up different stacks, like take out Marchessault and put in Tuck, or take out Riley Smith and put in Tuck, that type of thing, because I think Vegas too will be popular again here tonight. But the thing is like San Jose 1 is going to match against Vegas 1. We saw Vegas. I mean, the only reason Max Pacioretty got there last night is because Dansk was an idiot. So I'm not like, I think it's a tough matchup for both top lines. So like, I'm just going to be out on those both top lines. I'm in on Vegas too. Like San Jose 2, 37.7% expected goal share this year. Dylan Gambrell is not a good center. Rudolph Balcers is a spare part winger. Timo Meier is good, but he can't do it all alone. I think it's a great matchup for the Vegas second line. The thing was, San Jose put Ryan Donato back on the top power play unit. Like, I would have had some interest in San Jose too, but Ryan Donato is back on the top power play unit. So now there's no player on San Jose 2 that's on the top power play. Like, I think there's just too much value lost there, like to go for anything more than a one-off Meyer or one-off Balcers or something like that. Like, I just don't think I would stack it. Devin Dubnyk in net, like, depending on what stat you look at, he's probably the worst goalie in hockey. Goals saved above expected. Over the last 3 years, he's dead last by a lot. Like, it's not even close. He's in last. So, like I said, there's a good argument he's the worst goalie in hockey. So, if you want to use the Vegas top line, I'm not going to say no. They'll probably get more minutes. Power lines share the power play, all that stuff. I just think that Vegas second line is just in a wonderful matchup against the San Jose second line, against Devin Dubnyk. They're cheap enough where I can go put them in with my Toronto ones and stuff like that. And I think I can make enough. I can differentiate enough elsewhere where I'm not super concerned about stacking the chalk on top of the chalk. I can double center Toronto. I can throw on Alex Tuch for Vegas, those types of things. So Vegas 2 for me out of this game.
Yeah, I like going right back to Vegas, top line, second line. I usually try to get to the top line, but the price is going to be a big difference between the top two. So 2-man Pacioretty Stone, one of my favorite 2-mans. It's expensive. It's like the DeBrincat Kane, a little bit cheaper than DeBrincat Kane was last night, but same sort of thing. Like, those are the guys that are going to score more often than not when that line is cooking. I mean, I know Stevenson scored one last night. So the full stackers got there. I'm a full stacker myself, so I don't say that, to be like, you can't full stack a team with, or a line with full power play correlation. You certainly can put in Stevenson for 4,300. It's just crazy to me that this line is almost, not always, but a lot of the time, the Stone line is less popular than Vegas 2. And I know it's a price thing, but I try to get to as much Vegas 1 as possible. And then I will say, on the San Jose side, as bad as Dubnyk has been, I'm probably going to have some full San Jose 1 with Burns and Dubnyk. I just think that line continues to impress me, and they are fully correlated. They're cheap enough. They're going to play a lot of minutes. And yeah, I mean, if that line's going to go off, might as well have the goalie in there. If he gives up 2 or 3, you're probably not even dead for 6,900 because he's going to see some volume. So if he can just not be as terrible, maybe he gets a chance to get a win here.
I mean, that's one thing I wanted to mention too, is like, this is a blood feud, right? Like, there are these are two teams that absolutely hate each other. There were 9 power plays in the game last night. So if you want to power play stack the Sharks in the anticipation that they get a bunch of power plays again here tonight, absolutely no issues with that. You're right. The top lines look great this year.
Yeah. So like me some San Jose 1, hoping the ownership is in check. And it looks like it is right now. All right, that's going to wrap it up for us. Thank you, everybody, for joining. All 240 plus of you right now. Big crowd for Saturday. Thanks, everybody, for watching. If you want, if you missed part of the show, if you want to listen to us in the car or while you're doing some yard work, if it's nice by you, we're going to have everything up on podcast. We'll upload all of our strategy shows on podcast. So if you go to awesemo.com/podcast, you can see all of our different channels, our main channel. And you can find us on Apple, Spotify, wherever you would like to listen to your pods. Everything will be updated throughout the rest of the night. If you got any questions, hit me and Cliffy up in Slack. Josh will be in Slack, I'm sure, trolling me about my Val Nichushkin one-offs against my Ryan Miller shares tonight. But good luck, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. And Cliffy and Josh will break it down for you guys tomorrow, same time.